I'm Carla, 29F, and I've been married to Mikey, 32M, for 3 years now. Our story began in college, where we met during a volunteer event for a local animal shelter. Mikey was this tall, kind-hearted guy with a passion for teaching, while I was a marketing major with big dreams of working in the tech industry. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our love for rescue dogs and our shared background of being raised in small towns. We dated for 5 years before getting married. Those years were filled with late-night study sessions, weekend road trips, and supporting each other through the ups and downs of early adulthood. Mikey was there for me when I lost my grandmother, who had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was young. He held my hand at the funeral and helped me sort through her belongings, listening patiently as I shared stories about her. I was there for Mikey when he struggled with student teaching, spending hours helping him prepare lesson plans and boost his confidence. We were a team, facing life's challenges together. When Mikey proposed on a hiking trip to the spot where we had our first kiss, I thought I was living a fairy tale. After graduation, Mikey landed a job as a high school history teacher in our college town. I was thrilled for him. Teaching was his passion, and he had a natural talent for connecting with students. I, on the other hand, struggled to find a marketing position that aligned with my career goals. After months of job hunting and freelancing, I finally got an entry-level position at a local tech startup. We got married in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and my remaining family, my aunt and uncle who had been supportive throughout my life. Mikey's family was there too, his parents, Samuel, 58M, and Dorothy, 55F, and his younger sister, Amy, 27F. That's when the problems began. From the start, Dorothy seemed to have issues with me. During the wedding planning, she constantly tried to override my decisions, insisting on traditional choices that didn't reflect Mikey and me as a couple. She made snide comments about my dress being too modern and how a proper bride would have chosen something more conventional. After the wedding, financial reality hit us hard. We were both paying off student loans, and the cost of living in our town was higher than we had anticipated. Mikey's teaching salary and my entry-level marketing position weren't enough to afford a place of our own. That's when Samuel and Dorothy offered to let us live with them until we could save up for a down payment on a house. At first, I was grateful for their help. But living with them opened my eyes to issues I hadn't fully noticed before. Dorothy's behavior became increasingly problematic. She'd make backhanded compliments about my career, saying things like, "It's so brave of you to work in such a competitive field. I just hope it doesn't take away from your duties as a wife." She'd criticize my cooking, rearrange our room without asking, and even comment on my weight, suggesting I should watch what I eat if I wanted to give her grandchildren someday. I tried to brush it off, thinking she just needed time to adjust to having us in the house. I made efforts to bond with her, offering to help with household chores and even asking her to teach me some of Mikey's favorite childhood recipes. But nothing seemed to work. Things escalated when Dorothy started going through my personal belongings. I'd come home from work to find my clothes reorganized, my books rearranged, and sometimes things missing altogether. When I confronted her, she'd claim she was just tidying up or that she hadn't touched anything at all. The situation reached a breaking point 6 months into living with them. I had been saving up to buy a new laptop for work, my old one was on its last legs, and I needed a more powerful machine for the design software I used. I had been keeping the cash in an envelope in my desk drawer, adding to it each payday. One day, I went to add my latest paycheck to the envelope, only to find it was gone. Nearly $800, all my savings for the past few months, had vanished. I tore the room apart looking for it, thinking I must have misplaced it. When I couldn't find it, I reluctantly asked Dorothy if she had seen it while cleaning. Her response left me speechless. She said, "Oh, that money?" I assumed it was for household expenses, so I used it to buy new curtains for the living room. "Don't worry, they're much nicer than those old ones you picked out." I was furious. Not only had she taken my money without asking, but she had also spent it on something I hadn't agreed to and then insulted my taste in the process. When I told Mikey about it, he seemed uncomfortable but said, "Mom probably just misunderstood. I'm sure she'll pay you back once we explain." But Dorothy never paid me back. Instead, she acted offended that I would accuse her of stealing, insisting that as long as we lived under her roof, any money we had was for the benefit of the entire household. Mikey didn't push the issue, not wanting to create conflict. This incident was a wake-up call. I realized we needed to move out as soon as possible. I picked up extra freelance work on top of my full-time job, working late into the night to save up enough for a down payment. Mikey supported the idea but seemed reluctant to leave the comfort of his childhood home. Finally, after 8 months of living with his parents, we had enough saved for a small house. The day we moved out, I felt like I could breathe again. I thought things would get better now that we had our own space. But I was wrong. Dorothy's behavior didn't improve with distance. She'd show up unannounced at our new home, often when Mikey was at work. She'd criticize my housekeeping, rearrange our furniture, and even try to redecorate without my permission. Once, I came home to find her in our bedroom, going through my closet, claiming she was just dropping off some laundry she'd done for us. I tried to set boundaries, asking her to call before coming over and to respect our space. But she'd ignore my requests, and Mikey would always make excuses for her, saying, "That's just how Mom is. She means well." The final straw came last month during Mikey's birthday. I had planned a surprise party for him at our house, inviting his friends and colleagues. I specifically didn't invite his parents because I wanted Mikey to have a relaxed evening without family drama. An hour into the party, Dorothy and Samuel showed up. Dorothy marched into the kitchen, criticized the food I'd prepared, and started taking over. She even brought her own cake, announcing to everyone that she had made Mikey's favorite because she knew what her son liked better than anyone. I was doing my best to keep my cool for Mikey's sake when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Dorothy was wearing a familiar necklace, a delicate gold locket that had belonged to my grandmother. It had gone missing months ago, back when we were still living with Mikey's parents. I had been devastated, turning the house upside down looking for it, but eventually had to accept that it was gone. Seeing it around Dorothy's neck, I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and betrayal. I confronted her immediately, asking where she had gotten the necklace. Her response left me stunned. She smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, this old thing? Mikey gave it to me as a gift. Isn't my son thoughtful?" I looked at Mikey, expecting him to deny it or at least look confused. Instead, he looked guilty. When I pressed him, he admitted that he had given the necklace to his mother because she admired it so much and he thought I wouldn't mind since I hadn't worn it in a while. I lost it. The necklace was the last thing I had of my grandmother, the woman who raised me, and Mikey had given it away without even asking me. I told Dorothy to leave my house immediately and to never come back. Mikey tried to calm me down, but I was beyond reasoning. I told him that if he couldn't stand up to his mother and respect my belongings and boundaries, then maybe we needed to rethink our marriage. Mikey left that night to stay with his parents. It's been 2 weeks, and he's still there. He calls every day, asking me to forgive him and his mother, saying we need to work things out for the sake of our marriage. But I'm not sure I want to anymore. I feel betrayed, not just by Dorothy, but by Mikey too. He's always chosen his mother's side over mine, and I'm tired of being the bad guy in their family dynamic. I'm considering filing for divorce, but a part of me still loves Mikey and hopes he'll change. Am I overreacting? Should I give Mikey and his family another chance? Or is it time to walk away from this toxic situation? Update 1: It's been a month since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your comments helped me gain perspective on my situation and gave me the courage to stand my ground. After my last post, I decided to take some time for myself. I told Mikey I needed space to think things through, and he reluctantly agreed. During this time, I focused on my work and spent time with my friends, who were incredibly supportive. My best friend, Jen, even flew in from out of state to stay with me for a week, providing a much-needed distraction and a shoulder to cry on. I also reached out to my Aunt Susan, my mom's sister who had been like a second mother to me after my parents passed. She reminded me of how strong I am and how proud my grandmother would be of the woman I've become. Her words gave me the strength to face the difficult conversations ahead. About 2 weeks into our separation, Mikey showed up at our house unannounced. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. His usual neat appearance was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He begged me to talk to him, so I let him in, despite my reservations. As soon as he stepped inside, Mikey broke down. He apologized profusely, admitting that he had been wrong all along. He said he had always known his mother's behavior was inappropriate, but he was too scared to confront her. Then he told me something that shed light on his behavior. Mikey opened up about his childhood, revealing details he had never shared before. He told me about growing up with Dorothy's controlling and manipulative behavior. How she would guilt-trip him whenever he tried to assert his independence. How she would pit him against his sister, Amy, creating a constant competition for her affection. He described the walking on eggshells feeling that permeated their household, always trying to avoid setting off one of Dorothy's moods. He shared painful memories of times when Dorothy had sabotaged his friendships, embarrassed him in front of girlfriends, and even interfered with his college applications because she didn't want him to go too far from home. Mikey said he had learned early on that appeasing his mother was the easiest way to keep the peace, a habit he had carried into our marriage without realizing how toxic it was. I listened, feeling a mix of empathy for what he had gone through and frustration that he had allowed this dynamic to continue into our adult lives. As I was processing this, Mikey revealed something that shocked me even more. Apparently, Dorothy had been going through our financial records and had discovered that I make significantly more money than Mikey. She had been pressuring him to ask me for a postnuptial agreement, claiming that I might leave him for someone more successful in the future. She had been feeding his insecurities, suggesting that the only way to secure his future was to protect himself financially from me. Mikey said he had refused, which led to a huge fight between them. He described a screaming match that ended with him finally standing up to his mother. He told her that her behavior towards me was unacceptable and that if she couldn't respect me in our marriage, she wouldn't be a part of our lives anymore. I was stunned. This was the first time Mikey had ever stood up to his mother for me. As I was trying to process this information, Mikey handed me a small box. Inside was my grandmother's necklace. He had taken it back from his mother and had it professionally cleaned. With tears in his eyes, Mikey asked for my forgiveness and another chance. He promised to go to couples counseling with me and to set firm boundaries with his family. He even suggested we move to a different neighborhood to put some physical distance between us and his parents. I was torn. On one hand, I was relieved that Mikey finally saw the truth and stood up for me. I could see the pain and regret in his eyes, and a part of me wanted to comfort him like I used to. On the other hand, I was still deeply hurt by his past actions and unsure if I could trust him again. The wound of him giving away my grandmother's necklace was still fresh, and I couldn't help but wonder what other betrayals might be lurking in our past. After a long, emotional discussion that lasted well into the night, I agreed to give our marriage another chance, but with strict conditions. We would go to couples counseling, Mikey would maintain the boundaries he set with his parents, and we would seriously consider moving to a new place, possibly even a different city. It's been 2 weeks since that conversation. We've had our first counseling session, which was intense but productive. Our therapist, Dr. Anderson, helped us establish some ground rules for rebuilding trust and improving communication. She also suggested that Mikey attend individual therapy to work through his childhood issues. Mikey has kept his word about maintaining boundaries. He hasn't spoken to his mother since their fight, despite her numerous attempts to contact him. She's left voicemails, sent texts, and even tried to reach out through Amy, but Mikey has stood firm. Samuel, Mikey's father, called once to try and smooth things over. It was actually a revealing conversation. Samuel admitted that he knew Dorothy's behavior was problematic but had always taken the path of least resistance. He apologized for not intervening sooner and asked if there was anything he could do to help mend the situation. I appreciated his gesture, but told him that for now, we needed space from all of Mikey's family to work on our marriage. As for Mikey and me, we're taking things day by day. We're sleeping in separate bedrooms for now, as I'm not ready to fully let my guard down. But we're having dinner together most nights, talking more openly than we have in years. Mikey has been patient with my lingering anger and hurt, and I'm trying to be understanding of the complex emotions he's working through. There's still a long road ahead of us. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, and we have years of harmful patterns to unlearn. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like we're on the same team again. I'll keep you all updated on how things progress. Thank you again for your support during this difficult time. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some significant developments in our situation. Mikey and I have been consistently attending couples counseling with Dr. Anderson, and it's been an eye-opening experience for both of us. We've learned a lot about communication and setting boundaries, not just with his family but with each other as well. Dr. Anderson has helped us identify patterns in our relationship that stemmed from our individual upbringings, my tendency to be fiercely independent due to losing my parents young, and Mikey's habit of avoiding conflict at all costs. Mikey has also been attending individual therapy sessions, addressing his childhood and the impact his mother's behavior has had on him. It's been a difficult process for him, unpacking years of manipulation and emotional abuse. There have been days when he's come home from therapy looking drained and vulnerable. On those days, I've found myself wanting to comfort him, which has led to some tender moments of reconnection between us. As for Dorothy, she didn't take Mikey's newfound backbone well at all. About a month ago, she showed up at our house unannounced, crying and making a scene. She accused me of turning Mikey against her and threatened to cut him out of the family if he didn't come to his senses. She brought up old guilt trips, reminding Mikey of all the sacrifices she had made for him and how he was betraying her by choosing me over his own mother. To my surprise and relief, Mikey stood his ground. In a calm but firm voice, he told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that if she couldn't respect our marriage and me, then she wouldn't be a part of our lives. When she refused to leave our property, Mikey did something I never thought I'd see. He called the police. Watching him set and enforce this boundary was a turning point for me in believing that real change was possible. This incident seemed to be a wake-up call for Samuel, Mikey's father. He reached out to Mikey a few days later, apologizing for not intervening sooner and for enabling Dorothy's behavior over the years. He asked if we'd be willing to meet with him, without Dorothy present. After discussing it in therapy and between ourselves, we agreed to meet Samuel for lunch at a neutral location. The lunch was tense but surprisingly productive. Samuel admitted that Dorothy's behavior had been problematic for years, and he had always taken the path of least resistance by giving in to her demands. He shared his own struggles in the marriage, how he had slowly withdrawn over the years to avoid conflict, inadvertently leaving Mikey and Amy to deal with Dorothy's behavior on their own. He said he was finally ready to address the issues in his own marriage and asked for our patience as he worked on setting his own boundaries with Dorothy. We've had a couple more meetings with Samuel since then, and while things aren't perfect, they're improving. He's been respectful of our boundaries and has even started attending therapy himself. He's made efforts to connect with Mikey as a father, something that had been missing in their relationship for years. As for Mikey and me, we're doing better. The trust is slowly being rebuilt, and I can see real changes in Mikey's behavior. He's more assertive, not just with his family but in other areas of his life too. Last week, he stood up to his department head at school about an unfair distribution of classes, something he would have quietly accepted before. We've been working on our communication, using the techniques we've learned in therapy. We have a weekly check-in where we discuss any issues or concerns openly. It's not always easy, but it's bringing us closer. On the practical side, we've put an offer on a house in a neighborhood about an hour away from his parents. It's a bit of a commute for both of us, but it feels like a fresh start. The house needs some work, which we're planning to do together. There's something symbolic about fixing up our new home while we're rebuilding our relationship. There's still a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about our future. We're taking it one day at a time, but we're facing our challenges together now, as a team. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the latest developments in our journey. Mikey and I have settled into our new home, and the physical distance from his parents has done wonders for our relationship. The renovation project has been both challenging and rewarding. We've had our fair share of disagreements over paint colors and fixture choices, but we're learning to compromise and make decisions together. We're still attending couples counseling, though less frequently now. Dr. Anderson has been impressed with our progress and has started to focus our sessions on planning for the future rather than just healing from the past. The biggest news is that I'm pregnant. We found out 2 months ago, and we're both thrilled and a little nervous. This pregnancy wasn't planned, but it feels right. We're due in early spring, and we've started converting one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery. This pregnancy has brought up a lot of discussions about family and boundaries, especially considering our history with Mikey's parents. We spent several therapy sessions talking about how we want to raise our child and what kind of relationship we want them to have with their grandparents. We decided to tell Samuel about the pregnancy first, in person. We met him for lunch, and when we shared the news, his reaction was heartwarming. He teared up and hugged us both, saying he was looking forward to being a grandfather. He's been incredibly respectful of our boundaries since then, always asking permission before visiting and calling ahead. It's a refreshing change, and I can see how much it means to Mikey to have a healthier relationship with his father. Telling Dorothy was more complicated. We decided to do it over the phone, with clear boundaries set beforehand. To our surprise, she was relatively calm. She congratulated us and asked if she could be involved in the baby's life. We told her that would depend on her behavior and respect for our boundaries. Since then, Dorothy has been making efforts to change. She's started therapy, at Samuel's insistence, and has sent us a long email apologizing for her past behavior. While I appreciate the gesture, I'm still cautious. We've agreed to take things slowly, allowing her limited, supervised contact once the baby is born if she continues to respect our boundaries. Mikey has been amazing throughout all of this. He's excited about becoming a father and is determined to break the cycle of toxic family dynamics. He's been reading parenting books and has even signed us up for birthing classes. Watching him talk to my belly and plan for our child's future, I fall in love with him a little more each day. As for me, I'm doing well. The pregnancy has been smooth so far, and I'm enjoying this new chapter in our lives. My company has been supportive, offering me a flexible schedule as we prepare for the baby's arrival. I've even started thinking about how I want to balance my career and motherhood, something I never thought I'd be considering a year ago. Looking back on where we were a year ago, I'm amazed at how far we've come. Our marriage is stronger than ever, and we're facing the future as a united front. While we know there will be challenges ahead, especially with a baby on the way, I'm confident that we have the tools and the commitment to handle whatever comes our way. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable. Here's to new beginnings and the family we're creating on our own terms.